Lisa settled more comfortably into her seat, gazing out the window. They had already left the college campus behind and were now driving along the highway. Lisa and her husband, Mike Lars, had just dropped off their youngest child, Samantha, at her new school. In just 2 weeks, they had transitioned from a full house to an empty nest. It was a bittersweet feeling, yet simultaneously exciting. Mike and Lisa had met during their second year of college, and Lisa had fallen head over heels for him. Over the next 2 years, they were inseparable and got married the summer before Mike's graduation. Mike was in a 5-year MBA program, so Lisa found a teaching job at a small private school while Mike completed his final year. Once he finished school, they moved to Mike's hometown, where he took a managerial position in his father's small company. Mike's first paycheck came sooner than expected. Their son Joshua was born 6 weeks after Mike started his new job. The young couple was overjoyed with their son, painting a picture of a happy young family. 2 years later, Samantha joined them. Everything was perfect. Lisa stayed at home until Samantha started school, then she returned to the classroom, securing a position as a 4th-grade teacher in the same district where her children attended. Lisa enjoyed working with kids, which helped fill her days while the children were at school. Her father-in-law owned a small manufacturing workshop when Mike graduated from school. Senior Lars was an outstanding engineer whose workshop produced high-quality specialized parts for various industries, including aerospace applications. Their niche was low-volume production with high-quality and cost-effective unit costs. Despite the lower volumes leading to higher unit costs, Lars Manufacturing consistently outperformed competitors in terms of quality, even at a higher price. Mike and his father formed an excellent team. While John Lars was a brilliant engineer, he lacked experience as a businessman. Mike had enough engineering knowledge to make sound judgments, but he did not inherit his father's gift and passion. However, Mike excelled as a businessman. He handled sales, negotiations, and supply chains, allowing his father the freedom to focus on design and innovation. Mike managed to reduce costs while John maintained quality. Together, they transformed Lars Manufacturing into a leader in its niche. 6 years ago, a tragedy struck when John Lars suffered a severe seizure and passed away at his desk. He was only 55 years old but struggled with excess weight and smoked. He loudly claimed that food and smoking helped him focus on his projects. Perhaps it was true, but more likely, it cost him his life. Mike took full control of the business and hired 3 young engineers to replace John. 2 of these engineers were competent workers. The third, Tony Gillis, showed the same creative spark as John. Within 2 years, Tony was appointed as the director of engineering, creating a partnership almost as strong as the one Mike had with his father. The biggest difference was that John and Mike were family and shared responsibility for owning the company. Now with John gone, Mike became the sole owner of the company. This led to Mike working longer hours and traveling more than before. Lisa looked at her husband. At 40 years old, Mike still looked good. He learned from his father's example. His dark hair was touched with a bit of gray, and he kept himself fit. Never one for running, Mike preferred water sports like rafting and scuba diving to stay active. Lisa never liked getting wet, but she enjoyed lying in the boat while Mike and their 2 children went diving. Not that Lisa let herself go. Long hours in the gym doing Pilates, Zumba, and yoga kept her in excellent shape. Lisa's toned figure and firm physique attracted attention wherever she went. As a 4th-grade teacher, Lisa was popular with fathers at back-to-school nights. The fact that the kids immediately went to college was a surprise. Josh graduated 3rd in his class and was accepted into the same engineering school where his grandfather studied. This school emphasized practice and required students to complete 3 6-month internships during the 5-year program. Josh will graduate with a master's degree in nuclear engineering if he stays on schedule. Yes, where his grandfather focused on practical engineering, Josh wanted something brighter. But Josh wasn't a surprise. It was Samantha who turned out to be. Sam graduated from school 2 years early and displaced her older brother from 2nd place in their graduating class. Josh simply laughed and was proud of his younger sister. Sam studied incredibly hard over the past 3 years to finish school ahead of schedule, and he said she deserved it. Josh did tease her with a little bit of a smile. Josh did tease her a bit for missing out on being valedictorian due to an A in art class. Now Sam was starting a prep program for medical school in molecular biology at one of the Ivy League schools. Lisa was happy for her daughter, but saddened that she wouldn't see her attend a traditional high school. Lisa was a bit biased but confident that her 18-year-old daughter would undoubtedly be crowned prom queen. Over the past few years, they had grown somewhat apart, and part of Lisa wished she had those 2 years to mend her relationship with Sam. Lisa, without saying a word, turned and looked out the window again. Things would be completely different now. The next few weeks would be tough for everyone, but it had to happen. "Do you have any regrets?" Mike asked. Lisa sighed. A few, but I'll live with them. It's time for a new chapter in our lives. Mike chuckled. You talk as if we're dying. With instant messaging and Skype, it'll almost be like the kids never left. That's true, Lisa agreed. Over the next 4 hours of driving, Lisa and Mike engaged in easy conversation typical of a long-married couple, gossip about neighbors, household matters, and other mundane things. Today was Thursday, and Mike had taken Friday off to attend to some home chores, so Lisa was mentally going over the list of things that needed to be done. Finally, they'd arrived home and Mike parked the minivan in its spot in the garage. Usually in the 3-car garage, there were Mike's 2-year-old minivan, his Camry, and a 2013 Corvette that Mike bought for himself. The vet was a point of contention for Lisa. Mike had just shown up with it one evening 2 years ago, not saying a word to her. He said it was a gift from the company that had just signed the largest contract to date with a major NASA contractor. Technically, it belonged to the company, so Lisa had little grounds to complain. The kids had loved it right away. Once the minivan was parked, Lisa extracted her slightly achy body from it. 8 hours in the car today, moving all of Sam's stuff into her dorm, and a wild night yesterday had left Lisa craving a hot shower in bed. I need to go get some milk, Mike said, stepping out of the minivan too. Lisa groaned. Why didn't you stop for milk on the way here? Their house was a 10-minute drive from town, and they passed 2 stores after exiting the highway. You looked like you needed to get home, so I didn't object, Mike said. Lisa felt a small bubble of gratitude that Mike paid attention. Sometimes he could be such a good person. I'll take the vet. It's a great evening, and driving it is much more fun than in this minivan, he continued. Lisa waved him off. She barely entered the house when Mike was already in the car, pulling out of the garage with the V8 roaring. Lisa went upstairs to her room and undressed to take a shower. She felt like something was missing. Mike was such a wonderful guy. In many ways, he was the perfect husband and father. But soon he would be gone, and Lisa would embark on a new life. 3 years ago, Mike's frequent travels began to wear on her. Business at the company was great, the kids were wonderful, but Lisa felt lonely. Intellectually, Lisa understood that Mike wasn't to blame for her father's loss, but emotionally, she felt abandoned. One evening, when Mike was away and the kids were out with friends, Lisa went to a restaurant with a few teacher colleagues. They had fun and drank a few bottles of wine to keep the fun going. On a whim, they decided to head to a nearby club. She danced with Bob Warner, a fellow teacher, when someone cut in. It was Tony Gillis, an engineer from Mike's company. Tony was a great dancer, and Lisa had a great time. When the other teachers left, Lisa stayed to dance some more. As the evening drew to a close, Tony called her a taxi to take her home. She warmly hugged him and kissed his cheek before getting into the car. A week later, Mike went on another business trip, and Tony sent her a message inviting her to another evening of dancing. Lisa was thrilled and had another wonderful evening. She met some of Tony's friends, and they welcomed her into their group. Lisa felt more alive than she had since she and Mike first got married. She knew it was harmless and innocent entertainment, but she never told Mike about it. It was a bit improper, and she considered it her little revenge for Mike leaving her alone so often. The dancing became regular whenever Mike was away on business. Josh was busy with hockey, so he usually had practice until 11 p.m. As they only got on the ice at 9 p.m., he would come home after school, have dinner, and leave before Lisa returned from school. So he never noticed Lisa's absence. Samantha was trickier. She wasn't into sports, so Lisa signed her up for a series of enrichment classes at the local community college. The classes were on different evenings, so there was no pattern for Lisa. Plus, she never went in the weeks when Mike was home. Tony was a blessing and became her best friend and confidant. He sat across from her at dinner before their dances and listened to her stories of how Mike had left her alone. She admitted with a shy smile that now, during their dances, she looked forward to his absence. Tony was her pillar of support. Initially hesitant, Tony began to confess how he felt that Mike had misused him. Tony told her how Mike ignored good engineering designs to squeeze more profit from the business, how Mike sold ideas developed by Tony to clients for huge sums of money, never sharing the proceeds with Tony. Lisa was furious on behalf of her new best friend and wanted to confront Mike immediately. Tony reassured her, saying that legally Mike had bound him with a contract he signed when he first joined the company. The company owned the intellectual property rights to all employee developments, so nothing forced Mike to share the wealth. Angry that her husband had abandoned her and mistreated her friend, Lisa leaned over and hugged Tony. The embrace turned into a passionate kiss. They quickly left the restaurant and headed straight to Tony's townhouse. That evening, they never did make it to the dance. Lisa refused to call it an affair. She was in love with her true soulmate. The connection was passionate and fun. Tony was the man she was meant to be with. The 36-year-old mother of two and school teacher wanted to divorce her husband and start a new life with her true love, her husband's 29-year-old colleague. They still went dancing once a week, and when the children and Mike weren't home, Lisa often found herself in bed with Tony. However, two things held her back from filing for divorce. The first was her children. She had seen enough of her students go through divorce and did not want them to grow up in two households. Mike was a wonderful father when he was home, and she still had enough residual feelings for him to want him to still be with children, but she didn't want to give them up. The second offer came from Tony. Mike had just promoted Tony to director of engineering, with a significantly higher salary and a larger annual bonus based on performance. Tony wanted to wait a while to settle into the position and build relationships with clients. He told Lisa that she could take the company in the divorce, and they would manage it together as it should be. Tony claimed that the engineering and production staff would support him rather than Mike, who was seen as an absentee boss. Together, the lovers developed a plan for their future and support. They waited until Samantha finished school before implementing their plan. Meanwhile, Tony would build his support among the staff so they would be ready when the time came. Lisa stepped out of the shower naked. For the first time all day, her muscles were relaxed. The previous evening, she and Tony celebrated Sam's departure for school, and her lover had exhausted her. Sam finishing school early allowed them to move their plan forward by 2 whole years, which delighted Tony. Hot water and lotions worked wonders, and now she was ready to climb into bed. She could only hope that Mike wouldn't want to celebrate with her tonight. Wrapping herself in a large fluffy towel, Lisa walked into the spacious walk-in closet she shared with Mike. She grabbed a robe and turned to leave but suddenly froze. She turned to peek into the wardrobe. All of Mike's things were gone. Lisa hurried to Mike's dresser and saw that the top was cleared. She opened the drawers. They were empty too. All of Mike's personal belongings had disappeared from the bathroom as well. Lisa dashed downstairs and found nothing amiss in the kitchen. It was only in the living room that she noticed some family photos missing from a wall, and Mike's collection of movies was gone too. Her panic reached its peak as she made her way to Mike's home office, which had been completely cleared out. She sank to the floor as the full horror of the situation dawned on her. Mike had left her. He had waited until Sam went to school and he left her. A sudden fear pierced her that Mike knew about Tony and their plans. Lisa ran back up the stairs to grab her mobile phone. She had to call Tony. Rushing into her room, Lisa noticed an envelope lying on top of a DVD disc in the middle of her bed. With trembling hands, Lisa picked up the envelope and saw her name written by Mike's hand on the front. She opened it and read, "Lisa, I've loved you since the day we first met. You were the one I wanted to spend my whole life with. The fact that this will never be true has been my biggest failure. I couldn't avoid the trips and still keep the business going. You never told me you had issues. Instead, you ran into the arms of that person, Tony. I was shocked when I found out you were spending time with him. If there ever was someone untrustworthy, it's Tony. Tony betrayed me when I wasn't around. I found out too late after promoting him what he really was. He turned my staff against me and turned my wife into his personal ally. One wrong quote here, one insinuation there, and the engineering staff was ready to leave in droves. I was unaware of your relationship until it dragged on for a year. When I read the investigator's report, I realized it was too late to save our marriage after that betrayal. There was no way back. The only thing I agree with you on is waiting until Sam finishes school. Don't worry about telling the kids. They already know. Actually, it was Sam who told me. Our 14-year-old daughter had to tell her father that her mother was unfaithful. Remember that sudden diving trip when I took Sam to Kos? She came home and overheard a pretty frank conversation you were having with your friend. She collapsed on the floor, and you completely ignored her when you left to meet that person. Sam called me to come home. It took me all 4 days of the weekend to get her to hold herself together. Of course, later I found out that almost all that time you were with Tony, complaining that I had abandoned you. Since we returned from that trip, she's been in therapy with me. You know, Sam wanted to finish school early. When I decided to stay with you until she finishes school, Sam decided to work hard to graduate early. I almost gave up right then and went for a divorce, but Sam insisted on being able to do it. I was so proud and yet shaken by her decision. We didn't tell Josh until he finished his studies. Since then, he's been seeing Sam's counselor. He was shocked that his mother could do such a thing. I had to show him an edited version of my evidence for him to believe me and Sam. I made him understand that you still love him and his sister and stayed for their sake. I think that's the only thing that can save your relationship with him. Good luck with Sam. As for your plan with your partner to take over my company, you still don't understand that the company belongs to the family trust. After Dad's death, his descendants became shareholders. That's our 2 children and me. It will never be considered part of our joint property in a divorce. Only the salary I earned, my pension, and the house fall into that category. That's why I asked the trust to buy my vet. I can't sell the trust, but I can, with the help of the board of trustees, sell the company to the trust. The trustees consist of Josh, Sam, and me. When Lars manufacturing employees come to the office on Monday, they are in for a real shock. I would tell you, but why spoil the surprise? I found the letter you planned to deliver to me when I was served. As the song goes, guess you felt you had to set things right. Well, I have news for you, and soon you'll find out it's true. And you'll have to eat your lunch alone. But I'm already gone. If only you would talk to me. For the last time, love, Mike. P.S. The DVD contains some of your greatest memories. Be sure to watch the video in the folder titled Tony. Lisa collapsed onto the bed at the thought of her children, knowing what their mother had done and planned to do to their father. "Oh my God," she exclaimed. "I've lost them all." When Lars manufacturing employees arrived at the office, they were greeted by an email announcing the sale of the company to a much larger firm eager to occupy their niche. Mike never showed up at the office. Instead, new owners and Mike's corporate lawyer appeared. Teams who had worked for a long time in production and support services found that their pensions were guaranteed for at least another 5 years of work or a buyout equivalent to the remaining time. Engineers who sided with Tony did not receive such guarantees. They turned away from Tony when his promises of a profitable future turned to ashes. Tony tried calling Lisa to find out what had happened, but his calls went straight to voicemail. He knew Mike had been home all weekend, so he didn't expect to talk to Lisa. Now she was avoiding his calls. Finally, in a burst of desperation, Tony decided to go to her to try to salvage his plans. He pulled up to Lisa's entrance and started looking for any signs of Mike. Peeking into the garage, he noticed the Corvette was missing. That meant Mike wasn't home either. When his knock on the door went unanswered, he simply entered. "Lisa," he called out. There was no response. He called several times, searching through the house. Finally, he found Lisa sitting on the bed, watching a video on the flat-screen TV mounted on the wall. "Lisa," he asked. Seemingly ignoring him, Lisa reached out with the remote and pressed the play button. The TV sprang to life, and Tony was shocked to hear his own voice coming from the screen. "Well, you hot person," Tony said on the screen. Tony realized it was his own entertainment room and some of his friends. "I don't think I could have done it if she wasn't like that. I'll take that man's company, spend time with his wife so she'll give it to me. Hell, I'll wait a few years and get his daughter too. She's wonderful, but I can't do it with a minor." It was met with coarse laughter and inappropriate remarks shouted by his friends. Tony remembered when the video was recorded. It was 8 months ago. On the same day, it was announced that the 16-year-old teenager mentioned would be allowed to finish school that year. Tony was so happy that his plans were pushed forward by 2 whole years. Lisa paused the video. "Get out," she said in a dead voice. "You cost me everything, and Mike ruined us both." "Lisa, get out." "If Mike hadn't brought his .40 caliber Sig Sauer with him, I would have left you when you walked through the door and then myself. Just leave. Good luck finding work in this field. Mike will take care of that." Then Lisa turned away and faced the wall. After a few minutes or hours, when she turned back, he was gone. She never saw him again. Lisa was served on Tuesday. She wasn't surprised to see that Mike was absolutely fair in his divorce proposal, 50-50. She would keep the $1.2 million house while Mike would take most of their long-term investments. The one-time payment was balanced between the current value of his pension and her pension from the school district. An educational trust covered the children's education and expenses. But for this fairness, there would be no alimony or any other contact. In return, the videos would never see the light of day. Mike would have full custody of Sam, but she would be away at college for most of the year, so it was almost a moot point. However, in a personal note from Sam, she stated that she refused to be forced to spend the next 2 years of school breaks with my mom and her partner. Reading those words, written in her daughter's handwriting, was even worse than those inappropriate videos. What had she done? Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.